Scallops are a prized shellfish, and that's because of their delicate sweet flavour. I love them just pan-fried, or I'm going to take it a little bit further by wrapping them in Fillo pastry. So we've got a delicious crusty outside and then a really soft, sweet little surprise in the centre with the scallop. First up, we need to prepare the Fillo pastry. Always cover it with a damp tea towel to keep the Fillo pastry as moist as possible while I'm working with it. So we'll start with one piece of Fillo, and then I'll just brush the first layer with some of the melted butter, making sure we don't leave any spots, because the butter's not only going to make this really crispy and golden, but it's also going to act as the glue for the second layer of Fillo pastry. And just match it up as best as possible. Perfect. And then press down on it. We'll cover the rest. We'll start with one batch at a time. Then I'll cut this into 4 even amounts, so straight down the centre, and then cut that again. Now that we have the 4 squares, we'll separate them. And I'll add a little bit of extra butter to each Fillo parcel, just a very thin amount. Now you can just add the scallops as is, put a little bit of lemon zest and then pop them in the oven, or make it a little extra interesting with some cooked spinach. Drain the spinach off after you've cooked it, so just in a pan with a little bit of olive oil. Squeeze out the excess water because we want to keep this Fillo pastry really, really crisp. So this is really nice and dry. And then we'll place the spinach as the base. It's not going to overpower the scallops, so it's a great addition to this dish. And now for the scallops, I've taken off the little mussel that's attached to it. If you can find scallops with the roe still on it, so that beautiful orange roe, use it because it's got so much flavour. If not, these work perfectly too. And then we'll place the scallop on each mound of spinach. Now I'll season it with a little bit of salt, just a small amount. And then with a fine grater, a hint of lemon zest. And that's all I'm adding to these parcels because I really want to show off the scallops. Now for the fun part, we're going to wrap them up so they look like little lollies. I'll fold it over, and then with your fingers, just crimp the sides, and then you'll see it form into a lovely shape that resembles a little lolly. Now what I'll do is just brush on a little more butter, and then that can go onto a prepared tray that has some baking paper lined on it. They go into the oven 200 degrees for about 10 minutes, no longer, because you don't want to overcook the scallops, but you do want the pastry to go crispy, so 200 is the perfect temperature for this. Now, while they're cooking, we can get onto a really quick sauce. This sauce is called a Beurre Blanc in French, which means a white sauce. And it's a combination of vinegar, which I'll add to a pot, and some shallots, which I'll finely chop. This is going to give a really nice sweetness to the sauce. So 2 shallots. And usually this would have some peppercorns in it and a little bit of white wine, but I'm just going to keep it really simple. And then I'll add something that's quite unique and definitely not traditional, ginger. So in with the shallots to start with, and that vinegar's bubbling away, it's so strong. And then I'll add some of the ginger. Now the ginger I'll grate in, about half a teaspoon, and then just reduce that by 2/3. So you want this to almost turn into a syrup. Then I'll add a little bit of cream and start whisking in the butter at the last minute, which gives me just enough time to finish cooking those scallops and bring them out and rest. These look fantastic. I also left them in the oven for another 3 to 5 minutes just to make sure they're extra crispy on the outside. I also added some black sesame seeds to make them look really pretty. Now for this sauce. So this is reduced nicely. I'm going to turn the heat back on. And this is great because what happens is the cream is going to stabilize this sauce. So about 3 tablespoons. And just allow that to bubble away, just to heat up. And now we can add the butter. Now when you're making a beurre blanc, the butter needs to be really cold so it emulsifies in the sauce and becomes really glossy. So a little bit at a time, I'll add 3 cubes of butter and then gradually whisk it in. Now the amount of butter depends on how strong you want this sauce. If you want it to have a really acidic vinegar flavour, then add just a little bit of butter. Or if you want it to be quite creamy, add some extra butter until it becomes a really thick, glossy sauce. This sauce is glossy, it's thick, and it's that really light pale yellow colour, exactly how it should be. So off the heat, I'll season it with a little bit of salt because there's no salt in there, and another whisk to dissolve the salt. Now I'll have a little taste to make sure that the seasoning's correct. Wow, that sauce is magical. That combination of the sweet shallots, the ginger for freshness and the vinegar, just a really stunning sauce to know how to make. And it goes with all different types of fish, not just this scallop recipe. Right, to serve this, I'll add a nice pool of this sauce because we all know I like sauce, so a good amount. Usually this sauce is strained, but I like the texture of the shallots and the ginger in it. Now for our glorious little parcels, we'll just place them in the sauce. We'll spread them out a little. And then last one just over there. For some freshness, some fennel, cut that in half and take those fronds off. And then just on my mandolin, I'll finely slice it. This is just to make it look really fancy-pantsy. And then just rest those amongst the little Fillo parcels. And these little fennel fronds taste so good. They taste like anise. The flavour I love to have with these scallops. This is a fantastic dish. The little surprise inside with the scallop, the crunchy Fillo on the outside and that creamy sauce, that to me is a restaurant quality dish.